Well, welcome everybody to our Monday Masterclass. Normally Scott and I spend a lot of time talking about how we're going to figure out what customers want so we can create new products. But we don't talk a lot about how to launch those products. And that's a topic for today. And I got to tell you, most B2B companies aren't known for being great at product launching. There's some that are good, but oh my goodness. I had one client say, Dan, we don't really launch our products. We kick our new products off the back of the loading dock and see if anybody picks them up. And somebody else said, we don't release our products, we let them escape. So if you would like to get better at this, there's a lot of room for improvement for most companies. So what I'm going to do is go through an ebook we've written on this, and then we'll make sure we get that done in the first half hour. Stick around if you've got more questions on this topic or another topic at the last, after the first 30 minutes. Our Scott Burleson here, who is with me, he is our HubSpot guru. We do a lot of B2B marketing. We're basically into B2B marketing ourselves. And so Scott will join me, and if you have any questions, we will dive in together with you. So let me just show you what we're going to cover. First of all, let me go out to the Blueprinting Center, which is really the AIM Client Center. I think if you are already subscribing to any of our products, you should see a LaunchStar up here. It's one of the three things we offer. Blueprinting is our flagship, Minesweepers for transformational projects, and then LaunchStar is what I'm going to cover today. And I'm going to go over this ebook. There's more information here if you wanted to look at that. But if you're not a subscriber and you're not getting into the Blueprinting Center, no worries. Just go out to our main public web page, the AIM Institute, go to Insights, and I'm going to cover an ebook. So we're going to go under Insights, ebooks, and this is what I'm going to cover right now, this ebook on product launch. So let me dive in here. That's what it looks like. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can maybe read that a little bit better. And it's got a little bit of background information, some of the deficiencies of B2B launches today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us relatively quickly through these 12 rules. And then if you've got some questions, even as we go, feel free to stop me. We'll talk about them a little bit more. And then after I'm done, it shouldn't take any more than 30 minutes, maybe less, we can dive in a little deeper. It's actually a pretty cool topic. Creating a great new product is absolutely the lifeblood of our business. But gosh, if we're just whispering about it and people don't know about it, or they find out about it years later, that's not a good thing. So let's go to rule number 1 here. First thing, we want to be easy to find. So here's what's interesting. Most of us, I think about, well, the reason we got new customers, we went out and found them. Turns out that happens in 20% of the cases, but it's really 80% of the time in B2B transactions, the customer is finding us. Now, this leads to lots of questions. How do we become findable? Why are they searching? What search terms? How do we hold their interest? I mean, if we got our salespeople and they're sitting across the desk, that's one thing. But they're coming to our website, there's a lot of unknowns we need to sort out here. So in this first category,
turn it down.
Yeah, so this is what we want to do. So a couple of things here. First, we have to recognize that our customers have made much of their decision by the time they get to our website. It's 57% is what the research shows. So if they aren't finding your website, they're making half their decision based upon somebody else's website, okay? Now, you might say, well, yeah, I don't need to be findable if I've got a concentrated market, But here's the thing. Within that company, there could be many, many decision influencers and decision makers. And your salesperson is not reaching all those people, okay? And then your prospects, they are busy people. There is some interesting research that shows that once somebody does a Google search and they are scanning past all the ads at the top, right? They get to the first organic search. And if that one does the job for them, they generally stop looking. So that's kind of sobering if we're not listing high in the Google searches, okay? So anyway, those are some of the reasons we want to be findable. Now, another principle that we've learned is we need to link this early stage, what I call early stage marketing, which is figuring out what customers want, to our late stage marketing, which is launching and promoting the product. It's all connected with market needs, understanding market needs and satisfying market needs. So this is what we want to do here. Let me just give you one example of how to link this. Let's imagine that you've done some really good discovery interviews and you take verbatim notes, using the customer's actual words as we recommend. Now it's time to work on your SEO, your search engine optimization. Now, to do good SEO work for your website, what you have to do is say, I think the kind of prospects we're looking for will use this search term or that search term. So for us, maybe since we do a lot of blueprinting, VOC training or voice of customer workshop, those would be good search terms for us to attract them to blueprinting. Well, how do you know what search terms to put in there? What you do is you go back to your early stage marketing, going back to the front end, see the actual words that were used in those interviews, and those are the words you want to go for and optimize your website in your SEO work. That's just one example. Oops. I think maybe you could maybe mute folks if you don't mind, Scott, there for a little bit. And then you guys just unmute yourself when you're ready. So at any rate, what we've done to get this linkage going is we have 4 steps to a great product launch. So what we say is get the right product going to the right market with the right message and the right media. So that's the flow that we want to go with. It's really who to tell, what to tell, and how to tell. And so there's a whole lot more behind that. We don't have time to go into that right now. But if you work with that kind of a flow, then you're going to be in pretty good shape when you get to your launch. All right, let's go to number 3. You ever feel like the guy on the left here? Absolutely overwhelmed with all these things coming into your inbox. How do you get yours to notice? And how do you get them to act on yours? Well, about 40 years ago, there was a great book by Reese and Troutman called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. And these principles still hold true. Now we've modified them a little bit for B2B, but let me just share with you briefly what they are. I'll zoom this up one more and make it easier to see. Once a prospect's mind is made up, it's really hard to change it. If you guys, some of you are older, you may remember the Hertz commercials. Hertz is #1. Well, if you worked at Avis and an ad agency said, I have an idea, let's tell everybody that Avis is #1. Well, that's pushing a rope uphill. You're better off saying, hey, when you're number 2, you try harder. Work with what people have already decided. Principle number 2, people are open to new information. This is why content marketing and news is so valuable. Bring them something new. They're going to be open to that. And then what you want to do is be the first to occupy mind space. So corporate computers or news or consulting, if you're the first one, it's easier to hang on to that. Now, if you can't be first, try to create a new category where you can, and then simplify your message. So those are some of the things in positioning you want to be thinking about. Now, the next thing, advance your prospects along the buying cycle. See this guy here? At first, he wasn't even aware he had a need. Then he learned he had a need. Then he learned about your product and he was considering it and so forth. So he's moving up here. Now, here's the thing. If you're a salesperson and you're looking across the desk in your prospect's eyes, you know, and you're talking to them, you know where they're at. And you pull out the appropriate glossy brochure to get them right where they're at, okay, whether it be learning of your product or ready to purchase it. Now, the problem is, what if they're coming to your website and you are not in a conversation with them? How do you know how to reach these people? Well, what you want to do is put offers out there on your website and let them raise their hands and take the offer they're ready for. Maybe they just want to watch an informational video. Maybe they're ready to download a value calculator, or they want a consultation or a sample. let them to decide. That's where these offers are so important. Now, the goal of any offer is to move them to the next stage in the buying cycle. So that's what your white paper is designed to do, and that's how it should close. And then think about the barriers. I mean, somebody's not going to just learn of your product today. Let's do a plant trial of this thing, right? Or maybe they won't even do a consultation with you, but they might watch a video on your website or download a white paper or technical paper. So that's what you want to consider on these offers. Now, let's use engagement, not interruption marketing. So we all know what interruption marketing is, right? That's a phone call from somebody we have no interest in talking to. It's an ad in the middle of a journal that has nothing to do with the article. It's an email that comes in and it's totally a waste of our time. Now, but engagement marketing is when you get useful content in front of the customer. Not useful to you, useful to the prospect. So what you want to do is when they're in the early phases, unaware, learn, need, look at the time period here. In the left side of this, the proportion of awareness content is very high, and the proportion of persuasive content is very low. So our tendency is we have a new product and we want to go out and start beating our prospects over the head with all the reasons why they ought to buy it. Well, what we need to be doing is if they're in the early stages, hit them with awareness content. Now, what do I mean by awareness content? Well, by the way, if you're going to do a white paper, the first, let's say it's 6-page white paper. The first 5 pages ought to be helpful content for them, and only the last page is about your product. So here are some awareness content. I'll let you look at this later in your own time, but industry research, educational materials, industry news, thought leadership, case studies. These are all things that you can put in front of your customer to pull them in and get their attention. So that's what we want to focus on. Now, how do we customize this for our particular market segment that we're going after? Well, there's 2 primary things we're going to look at. One is industry concentration and one is position. We can actually add a third one to this, and that is what media are your prospects using today? I mean, if they're all going to a trade show, you probably want to be there. If they love to download white papers or do internet searches, come to webinars, let's tune in what they want to do. Okay. Now, in our LaunchStar software, we have a real simple survey, but you can do this without our software. Simply ask 2 questions. Question number 1, how does your company learn about new ideas? Now, our drop-down menu has these 18 possibilities. Excuse me. Second question, who at your company decides which ideas to pursue? If it's a technical people who are deciding, well, you want to go to the technical trade shows where they go, because your technical people probably don't go to the same trade shows as your marketing people, your customers, right? So you want to tune in for that as well. Okay, so that's the first question, is what media? Just 2 questions. It's like a 5-minute survey. But then the next 2 are, how concentrated is this market? Are there a lot of buyers or just a few? And then what is our position in that industry? So that's where this matrix right here makes a difference. Down in the bottom, industry position. On the left, you are a leading supplier to this market. And the right, they don't even know who you are. Of course, there's a spectrum, a range in between. On the vertical axis, there's very few companies that are buying down in the bottom, a lot of them up here. And there's various strategies I won't go into here for depending upon your quadrant. But the shorthand goes like this. If you're down at the bottom, that means there's not many people. You need to pursue them, send your salespeople after them. If there's lots of customers, you need to be findable at the top. If you're over on the left, you've got strong relationships, so leverage those relationships. If you're over on the right, they don't know who you are, you need to build credibility. So those 4 factors, pursue prospects, be findable, build relationships, leverage relationships, and build credibility. Those 4 factors all come into your selection of which of these online and traditional media you want to use. So there's a little bit more on that. If you have questions, we can help you with that as well. Now, this is one of my favorites. How do you become findable? So what I'm going to show you is almost like magic. Scott's actually really good at this. He's done a lot of work for us that have really helped our flow of organic search results. Every month, the number of people who come to our website just keeps climbing. We've been watching it over several years now. And what I'm going to share with you now is one of the ways we do that. So first, what you do is you have an article that you put together. Either you publish it yourself or you get it picked up by a journal. Now, if it's all about you and your product, are they going to publish it? No. If it's really helpful content that's very useful, will the editor say, yes, I want that? Well, yes, he or she will. Why? Because they don't have enough money in their budget to have more writers, right? And reporters and so forth. And they need to get good content to attract more eyeballs so they can get more advertising dollars. So they are looking for well-written articles that aren't too selly that they can publish. So if that's what yours does, then you got a good chance of getting published. Then you want to make sure you use the keywords in your article that you want people to find and click on. And then you want to put a couple links near the back of this that take them back to your website. So here's your prospect over here on the right. Dum-de-dum-de-dum, they're coming along. They type in a keyword because they're interested in a certain topic. Let's say for us, it's voice of customer training, okay? And there's an article published in a major journal that we wrote that has voice of customer training in it. And it's got a link back to our website that pulls them in and builds organic search results here. Now, the cool thing is there's a bonus on this. The bonus is just having links from popular websites that have, hundreds of thousands of hits per month or millions. Just having those links, even if people don't click on it, actually boosts the authority, it's called, the authority figure of your website, making your articles and your website easier to find, and they naturally start drifting up higher in the search results. This is a really nice way of doing things. Now, so you rate, yeah, domain authority. There we go. You can read more about that. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Word of mouth is really critical. You want to be easy to recommend. So identify thought leaders, the bloggers, the editors, and so forth. Ask for opinions from industry experts on your new product. Get evaluations from them. Get testimonials from early adopters. When you're doing your blueprinting interviews in the front end, find out who the key decision makers are, and then spend more time with them. Promote to people already in groups. Do great presentations. I've seen some really bad trade show presentations, and so have you. Here are some tips on how to do a better job on this. And finally, make it easier for decision influencers at prospect companies to tell others in their company. These are internal champions. Give them a selling kit, the PowerPoint presentation, links to videos, and so forth. Okay. All right. Let's talk about online and traditional marketing a little bit. Now, the online media, of course, is growing faster than traditional media. There's several reasons for this. One, it's easy to measure. So here are a number of examples of metrics you can put in place here. It's really good for the findability. I mean, that is really powerful. You really need to have some good search engine optimization for your website on this thing. And it's actually pretty cheap. I mean, you can spend a lot of money, but it doesn't cost a lot. You start comparing a lot of the online media to building a booth and staffing it and shipping it all there and paying for the booth. It's pretty steep. So I'll let you look over these online media at your leisure later, but there's 9 of them that are pretty popular. But what about your traditional media? Should we stop doing that? No, 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 no. It's great for building and strengthening relationships, wonderful for word of mouth, helpful for your branding. So keep that going. And there's 9 examples of traditional media here as well. But here's the thing. I find most B2B companies do a really, really bad job at this. You got your online media out there, you got your website, somebody clicks and they download a white paper. Here's my question. Do you give that lead to your sales force? The answer, of course, is it depends. But what's it depend upon? Well, first of all, it depends upon the firmographic. Who was it? If it's the largest possible customer in that market segment, well, that's over on the left side. If it's very small, or maybe just somebody working on their undergrad degree or something, or just that, no, not much interest. So the type of company tells you how interested you should be. The second factor is, how are they behaving? If they're just poking around, they're not even sure they have a need or not sure, that's different than they're ready to negotiate and they're committed to buying, okay? So the bottom line is, the smaller, the more they are to the right, and the more they are to the top, the less you want to weigh down your valuable but expensive sales force with a lead. You want to let marketing own that lead and continue to nurture it until it's ready, or not even pursue it if it's not worth it. It's only when you get down into the lower left where they're behaving the right way and it's the right kind of companies that marketing turns that over to sales. Now, how do you decide this? Well, that's where marketing and sales actually need to talk to each other and need to decide at what point the sales get this transferred over to them. And then, speaking of sales, make them look really, really smart, okay? Engage your sales force as you're putting this stuff together. Don't skimp. Use professional agencies to get some great PowerPoints and great white papers and digital and video. Oh my goodness. Use video on your website and let the salespeople click on that. And then do provide guidance to your sales team. Do role playing on how to do this. Put lots of hyperlinks in that's going to tie everything back to your search marketing. And there you see some examples of some sales tools that you could review. In our software, it has a list and you can decide which one are yes and which are no and so forth. Now, you want to also train them. And think about this. What do we train them in? Here you see launch strategy, measuring success, and using the sales tool. Who do we train? Our direct sales, our distributors, customer service, and then how do we train them? So those are all considerations in your training of this. Finally, you want to pull it all together in a launch plan. A launch plan should start really 10 to 12 months before your launch date. So you're really still in the development stage at this point. Otherwise, you could miss a key trade show, or sometimes these journals, industry journals, have certain themes and you want to hit the right theme. So start early on this thing. And then here we have an example. If you want an example of this, just drop Scott or me a quick email and we'll send you a demo. This comes out of our launch software. We call our software LaunchStar because it covers strategy, team, activities, and results. Strategy, things on the marketing, the messaging, the media, the team. Then on page 2, very simple Gantt chart as you're moving your way through on this thing. A little place on the budgeting, how much you're spending on traditional versus online, and then your results after the launch. So that is it for what I've got here on this launch plan. Scott, but let's open it up to questions. Maybe unmute, and any questions anybody has, feel free to jump in now. Any so far from anybody? So while you're thinking about your questions, let me just see. Scott, did you have anything to add? Do you want to talk a little bit about marketing automation at all, and what you've been doing with HubSpot?
Yeah, well, HubSpot, as Dan mentioned, is the tool that we use. And I mean, there's a lot of other marketing automation out there. Can't really speak to them because we're just sort of really familiar with this one. My assumption would be most of them are similar, but basically you sort of customize the experience for your prospects. When they come in, you want to sort of anticipate where they are in the buying cycle. And from that, they'll download something of interest. And based on that, from the automation part, what we'll do, we'll let a little time go by. And some of you may realize that you've been in these funnels as I'm mentioning it. A little time goes by and it'll suggest it, you know, so kind of like YouTube, like you watch this, you like this, so maybe you're interested in this. And we do that, and then ultimately we'll have one that asks if somebody would like, you know, is interested in reaching out to us for a conversation. But the you know, the intention of this is to, you know, not to pester people, but just to provide things that are useful to them, and that as opposed to, well, we all remember the days where, you know, we had door-to-door salesmen, or I mean, I guess we still get people still, we get junk mail and we get, you know, people calling us. So as opposed to that, the, you know, the idea is, you know, people, you know, we hopefully put out useful information, they find it useful, and then we wait for them to reach out for us whenever the timing is right for them, to have that communication. So somebody downloads something, they're sort of entered into this funnel where they will get, we'll suggest resources for a bit.
Yeah, this whole automated marketing is really powerful stuff. Think about like a sales funnel, you know, what gets them into that funnel, gets them started. It's usually the content marketing that works. So what you might be thinking about is, let's say you're going to get ready to launch a new, or you're developing a new hydraulic cylinder or something, okay? You know, when you do your front end interviews, the main purpose of that is so you can develop a better hydraulic cylinder, right? It's one that your customers are going to love. But, you know, you're also doing industry research. So think about this a little bit. You've got all this rich information on importance and satisfaction and so forth. Now, what if you put together a research report on the current needs for, you know, for motion control? Let's say you were working in agricultural equipment, okay? You could put together a really nice research report on that. Now, you probably wouldn't put your market satisfaction gap because maybe you don't want your competitors to see it. But you've got all kinds of other ways of shaping the data. First of all, you could put some secondary research in about how big the market is and trends, and you want to give credit for that, of course, footnote that. But now you could put in things like how many, you know, the things that were cited the most often in my discovery interviews, or the 3 things that were most important, you know, in motion control for agricultural equipment, or the 5 things people are least satisfied with, right? So you got all this really cool research. So then what you do is you go over your discovery interviews and you make sure you are keying in on you find the keywords. You can use the search function in Blueprinter to look to see how many times a sticky note comes up, right, with a certain keyword. So you get the keywords that they were using, and you build your industry research report with that. And then you have this article that you post. And what you do is you get it out there, you get it published in journals and so on and so forth. And because that keyword is in there, it's really a good chance it's going to rank high, because it's research, right? Editors at, well, I don't know what kind of journals publish stuff about agricultural equipment, but, you know, they're going to look for really good articles, and yours is like that. But it's also got links back to the full technical report that you've got. And it's got the rich keyword. You are going to start getting a lot of people coming back to your website. So the first thing is you get this really lined out the way you want. So the top of the funnel is quite wide. Now, the next thing is you make sure you have to have this all done, you know, initially, but you got to make sure your website is really, really good. Make it video rich, make it really informative, really good. Make it easy for people to download that technical paper, that white paper. Make it easier for them to hit a button for a consultation and so forth. Get their leads. You know, when you download, make sure you get their first and last name and their email address. Maybe not a lot more, because the higher the barriers, the fewer people will click. Now you've got these leads, and you can continue to nurture them, keep sending them information, check to see if they have any interest. And when they're ready, that's when you turn them over to your salespeople. So that's kind of the flow of the whole thing, but it really starts with excellent content marketing. And you can use your front end interviews to build that content marketing. It's something we don't often think about. All right, so any questions we have from anybody on either this topic or really any topic at all that has to do with blueprinting or Minesweeper? Is everybody okay on this Monday morning?
Good morning, Dan. This is Tony Gashui.
Hey, Tony.
Give me a second. Let me shut my office door. I got some people outside my door, and I'll ask a
Sure.
question.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. We are going back to our offices these days, aren't we? Well, some of us are. I don't think I'm going to.
All right, yeah, here I am. Very good synopsis of a product launch using, the software and some of the tools. I thought you packed a lot in those 12 rules.
Thanks.
I almost need to look at each one and sort of deep dive into each one of them. So my question is really around, the timeline for product launch. I saw you said, you ought to prepare about 12 months ahead for product launch. I don't know that I've ever done that. That just seems like a long time to prepare for a launch.
You have a lot of company when you say, I don't know if I've ever done it, because most people have not done that, Tony. Here's what I find is really helpful. You've got a team that's in the front end that did the interviewing and so forth, right? And then you go into development stage. And then what I like to do is convene that, usually the same team almost, about a year beforehand, because I want to make sure we have a relaxed pace. We're not scrambling. We may not meet very often. It may be very light meetings. If the product isn't completely defined yet, then there's limits to what we can do, but there's some things we can do, okay? And then what I like to do is just have a kind of relaxed pace. Now, who would I have on that launch team? Well, I'd still have the same marketing person, the same technical person. Hopefully I had a salesperson in the front end kind of helping us set up interviews. So I keep all of those people. Now, who might I add to that team? Well, if it's going to require some changes in my production, new packaging, a new line, I'm going to get an operations person on that team as well. And here's the fifth person I'll add that probably was not on the original one. And that is a MarCom person, a marketing communications person. Now, if I've got a MarCom person in my company, I want to pull them in. And most MarCom people, if you pull them in 10 to 12 months early, they're going to go, oh, thank you. Normally, somebody asked me to help them when the product launches next week. Now we can really do something together. And again, you won't be meeting every week for a year, but you'll be starting that. And some of the things you'll be doing will be more about the market, finding out the main trade shows, what the costs are, the main publications. Even if your product isn't completely defined yet, it's okay. There's a lot of market-focused things you can do in the early days. Then as your product gets more defined, you've got some lab work, you've got some evidence of how your product works, you're putting that together, and then you're moving closer to it. And when you do that, at that relaxed pace, you have a much better product launch. So that's the way I like to see it. It's very rare, Tony.
Yeah, I guess I would say that for me, what's been the experience is the official launch is really more like market penetration or what's the word? Customer validation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still waiting for feedback, even though we have a product in the market. It's got a commercial name. It's got all the documentation, some presentations to go along with it. We're still launching. We're not. I wouldn't say we're totally launched. We're still looking for customers to validate, to come back with some feedback.
Yep. Well, you right. Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And that's what we found to be sometimes a very long lagging period where, we thought, okay, we're good, we're ready to go, and then some feedback comes back. It's not so positive, and then people start scratching their heads. Okay, what did we miss?
Yeah. We
go back and change something. Well, it's a little too late now because we've already produced material in the plant. So yeah, I think having a document like this in front of us that sort of ties it all together from a discovery interviews to, some of the marketing and how we're going to communicate on online platforms helps.
Yeah.
So you can see a bigger picture versus, okay, this is R&D has released it to sales and now it's in sales hands.
Right. Poop. Here you are, buddy. You're right.
Yeah.
But I like the point you made here, Tony, because, we didn't talk about blueprinting much here, but you, for those of you who have been doing blueprinting, we say, keep the engagement going, right? You do the discovery, you do the preference, you keep following up with them. And you can have these soft launches or these sample programs, or these prototypes. And that is a fantastic way of doing two things. It keeps the engagement going, but it also keeps your product on track. I love what you said. Most companies, they find that, oh, that wasn't quite right. We missed this, we missed that, and so forth. Well, the stronger your front end is, and the stronger your follow-up and continuing follow-up is with that, you'll probably have less of these course changes as well. You'll engage customers more, and they'll actually be, here's the other thing. When a company doesn't do a lot of front-end work and they go, ta-da, here's our new product. Well, guess what? The customers are seldom ready to go, oh, great, we're going to stop everything and look at your product, right? But if we've been engaging them all through the process and they know where we're going, and you're telling them, I think in about 3 months, we'll probably have a sample, let's keep in touch. They're waiting for you. And so they will evaluate it much more quickly as well. So the continuation of that process in a seamless way can really help with the launch as well. Some great points there, Tony. Thank you. Other questions, observations, thoughts? Wondering how we're going to deal with Monday? All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining us once again. We'll have this tape. Scott does a great job of editing these and getting these posted. If you have some questions on your product launches, let us know. We kind of love this topic because we're into, our own marketing as well. And we've been learning a lot from a wonderful marketing firm out in Washington, D.C. And we'll be for several years now, right, Scott? And so Scott and I are just a couple of engineers without a lot of marketing bones in us, but we've been learning, and we'd be glad to pass along what we've been learning to you guys as well. But in the meantime, have a great rest of the Monday, and thank you for joining us.